I hate to put this on.
See any spot. You for attending today's cabinet meeting. And first one, any apologies for absence? Yeah.
Do you put me down because I'm not there in person or not?
Don't know. Is that an apology? Do you put apologies in or do you say attended virtually? I'll leave that one with you. Okay. Have we got any declarations of interest? I believe so. Thank you. Minutes of the last meeting. Yeah, I've not printed off. Are we happy with those? Been moved?
Yeah.
Happy?
Yeah.
We're all in favour? Thank you. Item 4, council plan, performance report. I just say, I know, Kath's on screen. You want to go first, Kath? And then I'll,
Yeah, can do. That's absolutely fine. So,
great, thank you.
as you can see from the covering report, then we've noted down what the notable achievements are. So there's obviously quite a lot of positive stuff here under Live Well. We've got New Snap and Chat Walk, and we've got the Just Do More website going live for the leisure centres, completion of the circular route at Grassmore Country Park, and obviously the gym refurbishment at North Wingfield, at Dronfield, sorry. So they're all, yeah, sorry, I know. So that's all under the Live Well. Continue to have good progress with the home installation programme, and also just to point out a really positive update on bed and breakfast. So all the long stayers have now moved on, and we've got the lowest number of people in bed and breakfast that we've had for the last 2 months, and the spend is also down on this time last year. So really good positive update regarding that position for this quarter. Couple of the metrics under Live Well. The dog fouling ones, the proactive patrols, not been achieved in Q2, but were achieved or exceeded in Q1. That's largely down to resources and some long-term absences. That was queried by scrutiny, and we sought clarification on that. And that team's recently going through recruitment exercise for the second post, and that team's expected to be fully staffed in the new year. So obviously all their priorities going on reactive work, so the proactive work has to take a bit of a back seat, but they're expecting that to resolve itself after Christmas. So that's good to know. Under Place, a great place to work. A lot of engagement events are noted this time, so a lot of interaction with businesses around different events, and the manufacturing sector forums now been established, and that will be concentrating on skills in that area going forward. A lot of interest in that at scrutiny as well when I took the report this week. Regarding public services, so a lot, we continue to do the work on the resident survey. We've now published the demographic insight, and that's going forward to support future decisions and priorities, and we're doing a big piece of work around You Said We Did based on that. So that's still continues to generate activity within the council, so that's good. And just to note, really positive engagement with the leadership and empowerment staff survey. So I think 80% engagement with the last survey that HR ran, and that obviously supports the work and the council's people strategy. Regarding the metrics for that one, 2 of the complaint metrics have not been met, and they were not met at Q1 either. So there's a little mini review that's now started on that, and the first meeting was held yesterday to look at how we can improve that going forward. And then just to finish on the environment one, notable achievements, a lot of work being done around course for sites for biodiversity, and enforcement action taken to reduce pollution and waste. Also a positive update on the Claycross Carbon Challenge Fund. So as with these reports, a lot of depth, a lot of trying to cover all the different aspects of what the council does, but also recognition as well where things are not quite right, and action that we're taking to put that forward too. That's my bit done. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Kath. And just to echo that, I think it is a really positive the document, I think, the council plan and how we're going up against it. Like you've highlighted some of the things, all right, we're not perfect, but things are all moving in the right direction, I think. I've also, I get this now, I'm waving it to bear, Jane, the tracker that you're giving me.
No, but
I've read it, I have read it, I did read through it, but I've just make the point that I think the pizza slices or Trivial Pursuits, whichever one you want to pick, I think it works really well. There are some crossovers between the different sections, but within that, I really picked up. You know, it does show that we're working really well towards that council plan, and I think it is clear because we've split it up into those sections, as clear as it can be, I think. And again, I know we're sort of it's still developing a bit. Again, how we sort of track that, and each department, but. I did make some notes on reading the tracker, which links into the council plan one. That obviously the external wall insulation stuff. That we've had another good quarter of that. By all accounts, there's only 57 properties that are dotted around district that have got to be done yet. There's electric charging points going in at McDonald's. There's loads of stuff that picked up in the tracker that we're really working towards what we set out at the beginning, and I just can't commend you enough on that. Thank you. Any other comments, Steve?
I think it's really positive. You know, we are working towards, it is a live document, or it was intended to be that from the outset.
Yeah.
You know, so there will be changes, and it's right where we identify things that we can do better, things that we're doing really well. We need to be proud of them, you know, and the fact that we are monitoring ourselves and changing that to match improvement. So I think it's a really good document. It's a very good demonstration of how we're working towards achieving that council plan.
Yeah, thank you, and well done, everybody. Everybody involved in that. Thank you. Happy with that, Kathy?
Spot on. I'm always
Okay.
happy.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, very good.
Well done. Item 5 then, the medium-term financial plan and the revised budget. I think that's got you, Pat.
Yes, this is a revision of the 24-25 budget that was approved by the council last January. Revisions will be approved by the council as part of the budget setting process with the term financial plan in January. The general fund original budget, after applying council tax increases, left a shortfall of 101,000. Which we had identified in Q1, allowing us to have a balanced budget position at that point. We have now undertaken a revision budget process, which is contained within this report. Efficiencies identified through the budget process have largely mitigated any minor growth items in the budget, and the variances are identified in Table 1. There are, however, 2 specific budget pressures that haven't been absorbed. The first is a higher than forecast cost of settling the pay award. This was because the fixed term settlement of 1,290 paid to all employers under the spinal column point 43 increased the average percentage increase above the value of the original budget. This amounts to £122,000. The second was the unforeseen impact of the delay of opening Claycross Active following the main contractor going into administration. We have had to remove the income we expect to receive from January opening from the budget, and whilst income is expected we have removed many of these very costs, as well as the net impact is now £539,000. which is not a small sum. It is pleasing to note that other leisure centres are outperforming their original budgets. Thank goodness for that. This means there is a need to budget a contribution from the Resilience Reserve to meet the overall shortfall of 663,000. I do expect that we will identify further savings during the remainder of the year to reduce the call on reserves, and we will keep it under review as we produce the medium-term financial plan, which will be presented to the Cabinet in January. There are no major changes to the income in the HRA budget. The management fee paid to Ricknell Homes has been increased by 278,000 to fund phase 1 of the major system implementation, which have just commenced. Following the recent housing inspection, it was clear that the data-driven approach to housing management and maintenance we want to achieve wasn't possible with the current system. An investment in new technology was required to achieve this. The capital programme is detailed in Appendix 4 and includes rollovers from last year's approved Cabinet in July. The HRA capital programme has been increased to allow the collection of physical stock data to be expedited. This is a requirement of the Building Safety Consumer Standard. General Fund Capital Programme has also increased to fund the essential drainage works at Eckington Depot. It does show there are problems. We're addressing those problems. I think the biggest one will be spoken about in a later report. We can't take a finger off the button. We should close the gap, but there is a gap at this stage. I'll take any questions, or Jane will, if they're very hard. If they're nice and easy, I'll take them.
Thank you. Pat, I think, any questions? Just a couple of comments, Pat, and I think, again, it's a good report. There are a couple of unexpected that we've not in, and we'll talk about them in a bit. But I think one of the things that you did highlight, that the 3 other leisure centres are doing better than we expected, and that's a real positive. And I think that's down to Chris and his team that's happening, because that really helps us out where we are with the revenue budget. So I think it's good. We are doing as well as what can be expected, Jane, can't we?
Yeah.
Say anything?
You guys have said it all. Thank you, Chair. That's pretty much where we're at as Councillor Kerry ended. You know, we'll do everything we can to close that gap. I'm relatively confident we will at least close it in part, even if we don't close it in its entirety. And we'll report that back to you at
Yeah, just before I move the recommendation. When you think what happened with Playcross, the firm going bankrupt, it could have left it in a much worse situation. And the real, we haven't it's not been mismanaged. It's just the fact that there's that gap. We expected income in the 6 months delay, and that's the sort of amount it comes to.
Just before you move recommendation, I think Jane's indicated on the screen.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Just a quick one. Has the increase in national insurance been included in that, or have we managed that from another source, or
Next year, isn't it?
So yeah,
next
so
year?
that's from April, and
Right.
we have built it in. The current estimates are it's going to be about 480,000 a year, which is fairly steep. But yeah, we're building that into the MTFP, Councillor Barry.
Right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pat,
Can I move the recommendations 1, 1A, 1B and 1C?
I'll second those. All in favour?
Yeah.
Only a real voted. Anybody else? Well, now, go you. Thank you. We'll move on to item 6. New local plan, proposed timetable for preparation, including the new local development scheme. There you go, Steve, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, with the preparation of the local plan, we've got to, of course, have achieved it or a submission by the Secretary of State's deadline, which is the end of September 2026. So this paper sets out a timeline to achieve that. They are challenging timescales, but David and his team, and thanks to them, have put work into this, and so hopefully it could be approved today. There are resource implications in terms of finance, legal, and staffing. So, in a bit, perhaps Jane, Sarah, and Lee might want to make some comments to you about that. It's in here. So the timetable is on page 46. And if everything goes according to plan, it looks like we should be in a position to make a submission by November 26. Obviously, that's only the first part of it. After that, the inspector will be involved in the examination of that. And part of the legal bit is that we have a local development scheme, which is on page 51, that requires that we have to do that. It'll form part of the development plan for North East Derbyshire, and it sets out the status of the existing planning documents that will be produced, content and geographical coverage, and the timetable, which is in here, and hopefully will be approved today. So, David, do you want to make any comment on that?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. Yeah, if we could start off by just echoing your comments in terms of Helen's here to help me present the report, and it's her and the team that take credit for this work. But it just in terms of the context. So Cabinet will recall the March meeting last year where a decision was made to progress on the evidence gathering exercise, which is clearly a fundamental and early stage of any local plan development. And at that point, and this was under the previous government, the deadline for submitting plans under the current method of examination was summer 25. So at that point, we were right at the start of or near enough at the start of the evidence gathering process, and we had less than 18 months to meet the deadline as for submission of the plan. So I think it was considered pretty unrealistic as a time frame, and that's what we went with. So essentially the decision was we weren't going to launch a formal review, but we're going to start the evidence gathering, and that has obviously been happening at pace since then. Clearly, since the election, new government and the consultation on the National Planning Policy Framework also included plan making activity, and the deadline for submission of plans under the current examination process was extended to December 26. So obviously at this point we've had a good period of evidence gathering, making good progress in relation to housing, employment, land, etc. It's still clearly ongoing, but we're not at that start point anymore. And with the deadline being extended, it is a judgment call, but from our perspective, we've set out a 2-year timetable, which is undoubtedly ambitious, but we're reviewing fundamental parts of the strategy in the current local plan, but we're not revisiting every chapter of the local plan. So, in terms of a decision to make at the moment, it's about balancing the risks. And in relation to the new plan making system that will come in under the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act, the government have said that new system, which is aiming to be a 30-month process with a 4-month preamble, so 34 months, would basically be coming in. It's quite a wide window, either summer or autumn next year. So on the balance of probabilities as to where we sit now, the timescales might not be that different in terms of submission under the current method of examination or the new one, but we would have to wait for the new one to come in, and there's a lot of uncertainties around that. So in terms of making this judgment, is it realistic that a local plan will go through in 30 months without additional resources, local authority and planning inspectorate? It feels quite difficult to say that. So as I say, with all things being equal, the timescales might be quite similar, but there's a lot of risk in waiting for the new system. So the recommendation in the report is effectively based on pursuing the timetable over the next 2 years under the current system. We'll absolutely have to keep that under review. It's very much a stepped process, and that's why we've been able to map out as best we can that 2 year, what that 2 years would look like. Members are obviously aware that we're out to call for sites at the moment, so we've started that process of looking for, well, asking the market essentially where sites would be for potential housing sites, employment, and also biodiversity again. So we are already making progress to this timetable, but it will be tight. And we know there's obviously discussions coming up at full council in relation to the local plan working group. And I think from our perspective, it's a time frame that doesn't have a lot of slack in it. We've got to pursue it now because, well, we haven't got to. Clearly, that's your decision. But the balance is that there's a lot of risk associated with not starting now. But by the same token, we have got to try and stick to that time frame as best we can. So I'll just pass over to Helen in terms of going through the indicative timetable, if that's all right.
Yeah, so figure 1 of the report on page 46, that just sets out an overview of the key stages that we have to report on in the local development scheme. So that shows some of the critical, the 2 critical timeframes for public consultation, the first of which would be coming up in the summer 2025. And I've just noticed, I think that might be an error of the yellow colouring in the report on figure 1. Not noticed that until now. But that should be June, July showing as yellow, not August, September.
You can blame me for that one.
Oh, can't. I think take full responsibility. So it's definitely June, July. The consultation will take place on issues and options. But in the run up to that, there will be some informal stages of consultation, probably utilising the council's GovMail alert system, but inviting some early dialogue on some of the issues and aims and objectives of the plan, just to try and inform that more formal stage that will be coming up in the summer, so that there's been some level of continuous engagement. So that will be more targeted and low key, I should say, but we will utilise parish councils, town council contacts for that as well. So that's the initial stage, and then once we've got those comments, we'll be able to build up a new draft document for the plan, which would then be subject to a formal Regulation 19 consultation in the summer of 2026. And that really is a critical stage, because that version of the plan is the one we intend to submit to the planning inspectorate, because we only have a few months after that in order to get it submitted by the end of November 2026.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's just whether anybody, do you want to make any comments about the resource implications and perhaps the legal bit? I mean, it's fairly self-explanatory, but
yes, they need expert evidence. Some of that may be expert legal planning expertise. We'll buy it in as and when we need to.
I think in terms of the resources, those that were involved in this last time in 2018 will recall that we were in a similar position, and that we've got reserves set aside. We do set aside for this type of thing, but it's never going to be enough to cover off the cost. This is an expensive process that we go through. So from memory, and Helen will correct me if I get this wrong, we brought a report through Cabinet previously whereby we identified what additional resource we would need internally and externally, and we put a figure on that, and we had to look for additional funding to get us through this process. So I think we should be planning for that. I think Dave and I did talk about it. We're going to maybe put something in the MTFP this time if we're far enough down the line. If not, it will be a separate report to Cabinet later on.
Thanks, Jane. Lee.
Yeah, just picking up on the impact really. Well, there's a huge risk associated with this period of time, isn't there? We all know that from the speculative development until you've got that local plan adopted. So that's one thing. The amount of work that's involved in pulling this together is difficult enough under any timescale, but this timescale is even tighter. And I know there's reference in report there to say we need everybody we've got, and we're going to work, full speed on this, but there may be the need to draft in others. And I know we've started this dialogue off, and I know we will continue that, but it's really important every opportunity we get to try and convey that message across the entire council in terms of how important this period of time is for us. And to get to that, I mean, it's long enough period anyway. When you look to adoption, you know, that is 3 years away from now, even longer if we miss this window, because even though that's a 34-month process, that's if everything ran smoothly and you started at the point it came into being, and we know that won't be the case. So yeah, just highlighting that risk. It's a major piece of work for us. It's one of the biggest things on the horizon for us, and it's going to have greatest impact on our district many years to come if we get it wrong.
I think that's only took like it is a big project, and I'm sure we'll have some fun, Ellen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Just to highlight on the recommendations, Chair, the third one in relation to publication of the local development schemes. Obviously, this will be in the public domain should the decision be to approve the timetable. Just so you're.
Do you want to move the?
If there are no other comments or questions, then Chair, thanks. I'll move the recommendations as been outlined 1 to 3.
I'll second those who are all in favour. Thank you. Lovely. And we're on to item 7, the complaint performance and service improvement report for housing. Please your ear down because that you go first.
I'm going to do the report and then dies. I've written the report. I'm going to do all the different questions.
Oh,
So I'm taking Councillor Kerry's strategy.
Okay.
To the report and then
That's fair.
it's a compliment.
Oh, right, fine.
It's a good strategy.
It says Lee Pepper up front, so.
Well, it's
No.
Yeah. I thought he was going to do me and Lee, but today I said, no, I'm not coming. I'm at uni. So it's like me and Jane instead.
say Diane.
Crack on then, Jay.
So just so you're aware, you'll all be aware that the Social Housing Regulation Act came in April, and that changed the way that we collect complaints, and it changed the way that the Housing Ombudsman operates. So we identified that we needed to monitor the complaints in a specific way through the complaint handling code, and we've been doing that. But in terms of actually submitting our data this time, we became aware that there was an extra layer of governance that we needed to build into that process. Ricknord collect the information, it goes to their board. The chair and I attend that board, so there's no problem with the data and there's no problem with our strategic oversight of it as client, but we remain the landlord. And so technically we have to submit the data and not Ricknord Homes. So Di very kindly had a look at that process for us and addressed what we needed to do. And that's resulted in this report coming here so that you've got that oversight as well, and that you're aware of that complaints report and the complaints report handling, if I can get my words out. And it also requires us to elect a council member as the member responsible for complaints, snappily known as the MRC.
Can I do that?
It is here indeed.
I know it.
I actually recommended.
Oh, thank you.
So Councillor Barker, as housing portfolio holder, has been elected as the nomination, which is one of the recommendations in the report. And at that point, I am going to hand over to Dan if she's got anything else.
Well, basically, you've got it spot on, but I have got to tell you that I've got to get something online, this report online by 29th of November, basically. I've been working with Ricknord Homes and their complaints manager and the regulator of social housing, and there's been a lot of going backwards and forwards on this because obviously they're in Almo and they've always done this in past, but now everything's changed from this year. And they can't do things on our behalf, like submit things to regulator because we're a landlord, exactly like Jane said. So we've been trying to figure out how it's going to get done and how to do it. So I quickly thought, oh, this needs doing. So basically, we've done this report to bring it to you. Want to put that MRC in place. And all that has got to be whipped onto internet after this meeting, basically before 29th. But also I would like or need, it's part of regulations, comments from yourselves at Cabinet about the report. basically to put on the internet as well.
Okay,
So anything that you.
it's lovely.
Sorry?
It's lovely.
No, no, basically, they're looking for positive culture of complaints now, and they are after outcomes, and doesn't matter how many complaints you actually get, as long as we're acting on them. So we can have a look at what outcomes have been, and it's all in this report, some outcomes that we've done. And this is what they want to see. So everything in this report is what's been requested by the regulator as well. So basically, after looking at other people's, they've got like a paragraph, like portfolio member said, this is a good report. We are looking at positive things like that.
Yeah, I can do that. It's lovely. Is there anything that I'm just flicking through? They don't seem anything that we should be worried about.
There's nothing in there that's worrying at all in that report. Basically, that report has been to the board.
Yes.
Not in this format. It
No.
was like a board report. I've just extracted everything from that and created this report to put online. Also, we can actually put in this new report, I think now, I've just got to check with that we can actually put in this report about the audit being satisfactory now. Before, we weren't allowed to put it in as yet, but I think can do that now.
Okay.
So that's a good thing. Also, as your role in the MRC, I've already arranged meetings with, or I am setting up meetings with Britnell Dome's manager on a quarterly basis. So that's how we can get reports from you, because you need more regular reports rather than just annual ones.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was thinking along that lines, Jane, that
As well, the fact that we
We meet.
attend the board and we meet, we've got a whole governance structure.
yeah,
around
that's what I was gonna say.
that ensures that we're picking these things up really, really quickly. We've
Yeah.
got informal structures, we've got external structures,
Yeah,
and I took a report to scrutiny on that very matter just this week, the relationship between ourselves
Oh, did
and Homes, which was well received.
Yeah.
So I think we've got everything in place that we need to have. This is simply a changing process because we are the landlord, and that has been the emphasis ever since April. So it's nothing new that we're having to do, and there are no concerns. It's just that it's a new process.
It's a new process, but I am going to be monitoring it.
And
no,
that is fine.
that's fine. No, I think, like you say, it just means we go look at it, not just Ricknell. That's.
That is absolutely right as well. And it's not just stats that we'll be after as well. I'm just pointing this out. It's not just stats. We'll be sending to you any worries that we've got about the complaint system, anything they've put in place or anything like that due to a complaint, what people are complaining at. We're not just doing stats and things like that. So it would be a more, verbal report or something like that. I'll report to Jane, and Jane will.
We just pick those up through our internal processes through portfolio briefings.
I mean, I've obviously read all this, and 59, is it, complaints?
Yeah.
I mean, you're bound to get some complaints. It's just the nature of the job.
Game.
Oh, thank you, Steve.
I mean, I think it's a brilliant thing to do. It's a good report. Thanks very much for that. And I also think it's useful if we know what complaints are, and it's right that people make them, don't they? They live in those houses. If something don't feel right with them, whether it is, we need to know about it, and they've got a right to express that. The only thing I was just going to ask is, I mean, we, I suppose, majority of councillors pick up housing issues, and I've got one that I'm just dealing with at the moment that I've talked to Niall Ricknold about. If the tenants made the complaint, I can understand that going in. If it's something that they've done through us as elected members, does that get included?
I think this is for tenants' complaint. No, they do actually monitor complaints from.
Because the one I'm doing, they've come to me and I've on their behalf and represented them. So would that be included?
It would be, yes. That's all included. Sorry, I won't.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I know it's.
Any complaint that goes through to them, no matter where it's from, regarding the tenant, this is only for housing as well.
Yes, this is in-house. So there's an expectation and that Bricknell would include them, and that would make up part of that report.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
and there's a difference between a service request, which you may be just chasing something up on behalf of a tenant, and a complaint.
Right, yeah, that's the difference. I
And
think
that's quite a big.
if it's a
difference.
complaint,
It would be 400 a
it's
day.
different to just somebody saying,
Yeah,
can you help me with this? I suppose.
yeah.
Yeah. Any dissatisfaction it's called now. But we're not using word complaints.
So what I'm
anymore,
dealing
so
with, definitely
dissatisfaction.
definitely dissatisfied. If it's not resolved, it'll be a big that's a matter altogether.
Complaint to me.
It's been counted in, that's.
Yeah.
It will be counted in. It's
She's
all.
Yeah.
she's complaining about Steve.
Yeah. Not with first one.
Are we happy with those then? And I can move the recommendations 1, 2 and 3, and I'd be delighted to take on the role of a MRC. There's got to be a joke there somewhere. Got the rim.
No, I'm glad you're delighted to be doing it.
Yeah, I am delighted.
Yeah, lovely.
Always wanted to be RC. There you go, that's my joke. Thank you.
Well, that's it. I can go
Are
now.
we all in favour of that?
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. Thank
All right, all
you.
right. Perfect.
There you go.
See you later. Safe.
So we are moving on then to exclude, well, agent items. And obviously we've got the exclusion, but the separate agenda, which is a private session. Do I need to read all that out? Yeah. That the public be excluded from the meeting during the discussion of the following items of business to avoid the disclosure to them of exempt information as defined in Part 1 of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972, as amended by the Local Government Access to Information Variation Order. The category of exemption information is stated after each item. I've missed 2006. We've got to do it again.